dementia setting in. So sometimes conversations are a little challenging, sometimes they're difficult, and sometimes they're just kind of heartbreaking. On Monday, she made a comment at the end, right out of the blue, that she couldn't believe that I was the one that left Montana, changed, and ended up in Arizona. I didn't have a lot of discussion with her. It wasn't the time, but I thought to myself, well, she raised me. She kind of guided me. How I ended up from Montana to Arizona was a natural progression for me. So it was interesting because I wasn't sure what was going on in her head. I'm 52. I was raised in Montana. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. I was raised in a very small town, Conran, Montana, by the Canadian border. A town of about 2,200, 1 stoplight, 2 grocery stores, 1 fast food restaurant that was open about 3 months a year. No spas, no massages, none of that. Like most of my classmates, I grew up on a cattle and wheat ranch. We raised a lot of cattle, wheat, barley, etc., which was a lot of hard work. You had a very strong ethic when you were growing up in that environment. We learned to drive when we were 12 or 13 because that's when we could start contributing to the ranch. By 14, we were driving combines and tractors and grain trucks, whatever have you. We could haul the grain into town. The highway patrolman would leave us alone because that was just standard. That's what you did in the rural community. Growing up on a ranch wasn't always hard work because when you have that much area, you have a massive playground. You could leave the house in the morning and you could go hunting, fishing, shooting gophers. You could ride bikes, motorcycles. In the winter, you could go down to the reservoir and ice skate or sled. It was a phenomenal experience to grow up in a rural community like that. So I ended up graduating. I moved to Helena, got my bachelor's in accounting. Loved Helena. If you've ever been there, it's a great place. Mountains, lakes, a great place if you're outdoorsy. I worked for a great company there for about 13 years. Got a wild hair, decided I needed to fly. So I started flying when I lived in Helena. I really don't remember why. I never grew up flying. We didn't travel a lot as kids, but I do remember flying. I remember my first solo. Daryl told me to go out and do 3 touch and goes, which I promptly did, and 3 bumpy landings. He said, no, we can work on that, but you really need to talk to the tower before you take off. Yeah. From there I decided I would skydive. My older brother was skydiving. That seemed like the natural thing to do, so I started skydiving. However, in Montana that's rather challenging because the drop zone was about 4 hours away. So you could leave and go over there and sit under the clouds and maybe not get a great jump in. So we started traveling down to Arizona because you have the world's greatest facility down in Eloy. They have skybounds and otters and king airs and porters and hot air balloons you can jump from. So it was a lot of fun. I met my husband down there. He's also a skydiver. We retired from the sport about 1.5 years ago. Me with 850 jumps. John stopped with about 10,000. Oh, wow. Yeah. When you stop the sport, suddenly your checkbook balance goes up, so we decided to get some property and Flagstaff, take our roots back to the mountains. John grew up in Montana, went to school at Montana State as well, so we're kind of getting our way back to the mountains, and we really like it a lot. So I started thinking, was Mom right? Had I really changed? I don't know that I had. I grew up in a town of 2,200. I ended up in a city of 6 million, more than the state of Montana. I hated cooking. Oh, I would help Mom out on the ranch, and we'd cook for the hired hands 2 meals a day. I learned to hate to cook. If my kitchen had a drive-through window and a vending machine, I'd be ecstatic. We learned to drive. We learned to drive very... I guess you learn to drive very efficiently in Montana. You start at 12, you've got a great skill set. We can drive on black ice, apparently better than the Kardashian family can. They just recently slid off the road in Montana. You learn to drive in whiteouts, and if you were lucky enough in the late 90s, you drove in Montana when there was no speed limit. During 96 and 99, they had no speed limit during the daytime. Yeah. I have a strong work ethic. Mom and Dad taught me a strong work ethic, fiscal responsibility. If you didn't have the money for it, you didn't put it on credit because you didn't need it that bad. So I've always followed that, and I'm pretty happy where I ended up. I'm not a pilot anymore. I didn't pursue that. My husband is the pilot in the family, so I hope we have a little plane. If something goes wrong, then Daryl will be in the back of my head. Hopefully I can get ourselves down without killing us. I don't know. Mom's comment, and maybe she was right, maybe she was wrong, maybe I did change a little bit, but I guess I'll always wonder if I ended up where she expected me to.
For our second speaker, I would like to... Oh, I'm sorry. You get 2 minutes. I'm thinking, how am I going to fill out my form? Is that time?
2 minutes is up.
Can we pass them down?